What is going on, all of you amazing Nintendo gamers out there in the world? I'm Mega Amster. Thank you for watching this YouTube video. Whether you are a new or returning viewer, I appreciate you stopping by. I say Nintendo viewers, but this is really going to apply to any fan of gaming in the entire industry, even if it's not specifically Nintendo. However, a couple caveats before we get into this. I'm not claiming to be a financial analyst, an economic expert, any of that. I am just stating this from what I have read today as of this recording and like my insights that I've gathered. I figured I wanted to share with all of you just from the perspective of a consumer and a gamer. Also, yes, most of this is going to be focused on the Nintendo Switch 2 stuff going on, but this will apply to everybody in the gaming industry as a whole. So please keep that in mind, especially with AAA gaming. So let's get into this. So we're getting to a point, right, where gaming is starting to become almost exclusive. Like, it is starting to, we're seeing the foundation being laid to where it is going to become financially exclusive to a lot of consumers. You know, with the decline in like gaming rentals and physical media, where you can only buy games through approved, you know, usually the platform holders' digital storefronts. Retailers are still doing it, but not as much, and they can charge stagnant prices for that, some of which are becoming absurd. Now, we're seeing all these big budgets of these games explode too, for especially AAA gaming, with Nintendo, with Sony and Microsoft especially, and we're starting to see the effects, right? $70 games were introduced, when was that? A few years ago, maybe, as of this recording? Let me know if you remember what the first $70 game of like this generation, like PS4, sorry, maybe PS4, Xbox One, mainly Series X, PS5, in that era. We saw Nintendo do it with specifically Tears of the Kingdom. So what's happening now is, you know, a couple days ago as of this recording, we had the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, where they showcase the hardware of the Switch 2, a bunch of game announcements, all sorts of third parties coming along, and I myself was very excited. And I still am excited for the games such as Mario Kart World that we're seeing here and Donkey Kong Bonanza coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. And they dropped the price of $450 for the base model, $499 for a bundle that included Mario Kart World. If you wanted to buy Mario Kart World separately, I believe, at least I'm going off of US prices, by the way, I believe it was $80 digitally and $90 physically. Please correct me if I'm wrong about that, but that's what I was seeing online from Nintendo themselves and other retailers. And like other games like Donkey Kong Bonanza, I believe were $70. But like I said, correct me if I'm wrong about that. This is all US-based currency. So I understand that outrage. Personally, I took a look at that and I said, you know what, I don't find that too bad. I do understand that I am speaking from a place of privilege where I can afford those things. Like, to me, $450 isn't a bad price, considering the technology, considering the price compared to the Switch 1 and the OLED. It's only $100 more than the OLED, the base model. And then the bundle, you get Mario Kart and you save $30 if you get it in the bundle. So makes sense, get the bundle if you can, right? But I understand that's coming from a place of privilege, and on top of that already, a lot of people cannot afford that. However, today as of this recording, and this is what I want to talk about, I'm going to try to be not super political. I'm going to try to be mainly factual here. But there is going to come a point where we're going to have to talk about it. So, if you're a gamer in the US, and this might even affect gamers outside of the US, I'm not, like I said, I'm not fully sure. I'm not an economic expert. Please keep the comments unpolitical if we can. Our president, I hate to say president, as someone who lives in the US, President Trump is introducing a bunch of tariffs that are going to really increase prices, especially in the technology industry. Because what's happening, so this is an IGN article, shout out to IGN, Rebecca Valentine at IGN, writing this article about the ESA responding to Trump's tariffs. So Trump announced 10% tariffs on essentially every country, with especially higher tariffs, even more, on a lot of nations such as China, Europe, Japan, Vietnam, Canada, Mexico, and many others. And then I guess China announced this morning a 34% reciprocal tariff on all US goods. And so, as a result, like, you know, you could be a gamer and be like, okay, this doesn't matter to me. You shouldn't be saying that, but, you know, you might be thinking that, oh, this isn't going to affect my games, I'll be fine. No, Nintendo, essentially in the US, postponed the pre-orders for the Switch 2 because it is re-evaluating the price. The reason for them pulling this back is to re-evaluate the price. There is a good chance that when the pre-orders come back up for the Switch 2 in the United States, that it is going to be even more expensive. So if you were already on the fence or you were already like $450, it's way too much for me. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. It's certainly not going to get better. Far from it. And for now, this is only affecting Nintendo in this capacity, but trust me, it is going to impact every, especially console manufacturer. It's going to impact NVIDIA graphics cards even more because a lot of their production is in nations like China and Vietnam. So apparently, I read this about Nintendo, they actually migrated over a lot of their production from China to Vietnam. They started doing that to avoid the initial tariffs that President Trump was enacting. But now, these tariffs are impacting Vietnam anyway, so it literally doesn't matter for them. They tried to avoid it, and now they're getting hit regardless. So it's a very much an unprecedented situation, both within and outside of gaming. And I am with everybody who is outraged by this, because this is getting absurd. Like, I understand the whole drop the price thing you see in the live chat for the Switch 2 things. I understand that going ahead of, like, I understand going into it. I mean, Mario Kart was $80 digitally on its own. A lot of other Nintendo games are going to be $70. A lot of the Switch 2 editions of, like, Metroid Prime, Kirby, Breath of the Wild were, like, $80 with the additional content. And, like, I get the outrage. That's a lot of money. You know, gaming used to be one of the most, like, inexpensive hobbies. And maybe it still is because everything else is so much more expensive, but it is getting to a point where it is really becoming an expensive hobby. If you're into Nintendo, if you're into Sony and Microsoft, it's becoming very, very expensive and it's only getting worse. Like, this is just the beginning. And now that we have these tariffs on place on top of this, this is going to get bad. It's going to keep getting worse. And so analysts are talking about all this. I guess shout out to Rebecca Valentine. She was on the phone with a spokesperson, Aubrey Quinn, from the ESA. Of course, the people who rate the games in the US. The ESA, like everyone else, is still trying to figure out how all this is going to play out. They have some expectations. They knew tariffs of some sort were coming, both due to Trump's past actions in his first administration and the repeated discussion of them. So we knew these tariffs were coming. Everybody was talking about them, but we didn't know how significant they were going to be, and it seems to be passing everybody's expectations in terms of how large these tariffs are going to be. What the ESA does feel confident in saying is that these tariffs will have a negative impact on video games. To quote, "We really are at this point just watching and trying not to have knee-jerk reactions because we don't think that President Trump announced this week is the end of the story." It's a good perspective to have because who knows what's going to happen later. What was announced, the tariffs outlined, we do expect these tariffs will have a real and detrimental impact on the industry and the hundreds of millions of Americans who love to play games. Our goal is to work with the administration, to work with the other elected officials, try to find a solution that doesn't damage U.S. industries, business, but also American gamers and families. They're going to, of course, prioritize the business. Quinn says it was hard to... It would be, okay, detrimental impact doesn't mean the cost of the systems. Though it's hard to imagine a world where tariffs like this don't impact pricing. 100% it's going to impact pricing. Literally, Nintendo themselves know this. They literally pulled back. They straight up pulled back on the pre-orders to reassess the price. They could easily raise the price. Maybe they come back and it's the same, but honestly, I doubt it at this point. ESA has been able to leverage relationships. The short answer is we know who the conversations need to be happening with. We were working on making connections with people. Yeah. Reason ESA, it's just like what they are saying is that most likely this is going to have a big impact on pricing, but obviously we don't know the end of it. This is not the end of it. We're going to hear more about this later, and I really hope this isn't going to impact the rest of the world, but I have a feeling it's going to at least rub off a little bit in a negative way on other countries, because the US president decided to put up these crazy tariffs on not just gaming, by the way. This is all of tech. All of tech is going to be hit. A lot of tech manufacturing happens outside of the country in these countries that were mentioned above that are being included in these tariffs and being hit hard with these tariffs. And so now what we're seeing, shout out again to Rebecca Valentine over at IGN for that article about talking with the ESA about that, because the ESA is taking a look at this and saying, like, there's going to be a change. There's going to be a negative impact no matter what happens here. It's just a matter of how bad it'll be, how much the price will increase. But like I said earlier, even if the Switch 2, the base price before these pre-orders were pulled back in the US was $450. It was $450. And now they pull the price because of these tariffs that the president of the US set into place. And I am sorry, but if you are in denial that the president's actions are increasing the prices of tech, I need you to just wake the fuck up. Wake up. I am not being political about this. I am factually presenting to you that the president of the United States is making gaming more expensive, along with like everything else, especially in the tech industry. So if you don't agree with that, I'm sorry, you're disregarding any sort of factual information. Just gonna put that out there. I will put my opinions on that aside, but it's getting to the point where this is absurd, and gaming is already getting to the point where it's so expensive. It's only going to get worse from here. And what the ESA was saying in their previous article, I didn't quote the specific part, but this isn't just Nintendo, everybody. This isn't just Nintendo. Because so many of these tech companies manufacture their parts outside of the US. So all of gaming is going to be affected by these tariffs. We're just seeing it with Nintendo now because they have a next-gen console coming out literally in 2 months. We don't know when it's going to be available for pre-order in the US. And that's why they're catching a lot of heat for it now. But this is going to impact everybody. Like, we saw the PS5 Pro was $700. Dude, PS6 is going to be $1,200. Xbox Series Y is going to be like $1,000. Switch 2, after the tariffs come back, is probably going to be $600. It's going to be like PS3 launch price. Just you wait. I don't want to predict that, but we are getting to the point where it is becoming that. It is literally becoming that. I originally felt okay about the price of the base model and the bundle. Not like I didn't love it, of course, as a consumer. It's still a lot of money, $450, and then $500 for the Mario Kart World bundle. That's still a lot of money. You're really dedicating yourself in. But personally speaking, I know, like I said earlier, I have a very privileged take on this. I was okay with that. I'm starting to reach a breaking point. It really depends on what price Nintendo comes back with, because obviously they're not going to try to completely screw over their consumers. One point I want to get across: companies are not your friends. Nintendo and other companies are not making these games to be friends with us, to be friendly to us. No, they are making these games because they want to make money. At the end of the day, that is capitalism. That is what they're doing. And at the end of the day, they will appeal to us and try to give us really great games so that we can spend money on them. And I am happy to give them money for games, considering it's not absolutely absurd. And depending on what price they come back with, we might get that. Now, for some people, the base price was absolutely absurd. I get that. I understand that, and you are valid to feel that. But for me, we'll see where my breaking point is. It really depends on what they come back with after these tariffs, because honestly, within the next few weeks, I bet we're going to hear what the pre-order price is. And if they come back and say it's like $600, I don't know. And Nintendo's in a tough spot because in the past, they've always been, like, not always, I shouldn't say, but like, for example, with the Switch, they were a cheaper alternative. Granted, they had less powerful hardware, but for $300, you get console games from them that are exclusives in portable format. And compared to the PS5 and Series X that are $500, that seems like a pretty much better value. But now, Nintendo's in a tough spot because they want to appeal to consumers, but they already know they're in a losing battle where they are going to lose consumers because of these tariffs. That is out of their control. And like I said, I'm not trying to give Nintendo any pity or anything because they are a company and they are not our friends, but this situation is out of their control. They can't lose money on this system, otherwise they no longer are a company. So, but they have to increase the price. They almost certainly have to after these tariffs are being activated. Otherwise, they're going to lose so much money. And they have a lot of money to lose, to be fair. They are a wealthy one of the wealthiest companies in Japan, but they need to figure out a way to do it. I need to see what the price is when it comes back. This is just, if you're being ignorant of what's going on, the political climate here, like, wake up. Wake up, because it is impacting your hobbies, your interests. If you're in the US, it is impacting everything for you. It is impacting your way of living, especially when it comes to stuff outside of your work, or even in work, but that's obviously not a discussion for this channel. Yeah, gaming is getting more expensive, everybody. And it's starting in a big way here with Nintendo's next-gen system. They're caught in the crossfire at a horrible time. And it's going to come to Sony and Xbox soon enough, and probably Steam. You know, the only ones maybe that might be okay are indies. I don't know how indies are going to be impacted. They'll probably be impacted in terms of their way of living and their budgets and like their livelihood. Like, we're going to see more gaming layoffs. We're going to see more studios close, which is the unfortunate reality of the situation. But in terms of indie games being expensive, depends. I don't know. I'm always trying to say, support indies when you can, because for whatever reason they tend to be cheaper. I don't know why, but they tend to be cheaper. I guess not even less budget. I don't know, but like you're supporting small studios by doing that, especially when AAA gaming, including Nintendo, is becoming a lot less accessible financially to a lot of people, and that's just going to impact everybody as a result. You know, we don't want a console to be siloed financially to a specific group of people, like a small subset of people. We want more people playing these systems. We want these systems and games to be more successful so everybody can play, so that Nintendo can make even more better products with more people playing. That's what we want. But due to certain individuals' actions, that's getting harder and harder, and that's getting more limited, you know? Like, yes, I think Nintendo was a little cocky to price certain games the way they were with the Switch 2. 100% agree. And I could even see that with maybe the Switch 2. But personally, I thought it was okay. But this is out of their control. This is a situation out of their control where they have to act. And you could tell they were panicked when they announced they had to pull back the pre-orders. You know they were panicked when they announced they had to do that. I am curious, though, just to wrap up this video, like, let me know in the comments below, if you're not in the US, I'm curious, you know, do you think this is going to impact the prices of your games, or how, if this is going to impact anything on your end? What do you think about it looking in? Like, listen, man, I am not a fan of, I don't want to be a US citizen right now, but here I am in this spot, dealing with what we're dealing with, and it sucks. Honestly, it sucks to be a consumer now. It's really going to suck over time in the next few years to be a consumer of entertainment media, of tech products. It's going to be tough. It's really going to be tough. So we'll hang in there. We'll see what Nintendo reports for the price in the US for the pre-order when it goes back up. But that's going to do it for this video. I needed to vent a little bit and talk about this because it's a big deal. Everybody's talking about it, and I'm joining the fray. This is bad. Before the tariffs, I was like, okay, this price isn't awful for me personally. Now I'm like, I'm nervous. I'm scared. I'm skeptical. What if this thing comes back and it's $700? Like, that is a likely outcome in the next few weeks. We will just have to see. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please keep it non-political. Just like talking about what you think about these tariffs. I know it's tough because it's kind of tied into that already, but just like, let's be respectful, please, in the comments below. What your thoughts are on these prices. I mean, the base price of the Switch 2 already, and after this, you know, what do you think is going to happen? Are you still debating, like, considering getting a Switch 2? I'm still considering it. It just depends on that price. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll catch you all in the next video or live stream. Until then, take care. Good time to play games off your backlog, emulate games, and support indies. I'll see you later.